quickly invite our next speaker in the person of the Chief of Party, Feed the Future Nigeria Rural Resilience Activity of the Mercy Corps, and that is in the person of Margarita Aswani. Please a round of applause as she steps forward. She's been involved in feeding Nigerians, so we appreciate you, madam. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for establishing protocols. Before I get started, I want to really appreciate my team and the entire Mercy Corps family who's made this event happen. My colleagues in the Feed the Future activities and the USAID support that we've gotten, and all of our partners. I see you all out there, and I'm just truly grateful. I also want to acknowledge that our work is being funded by USAID, and without their support, we would not be able to contribute to the national development goals that Dr. Sam had outlined. For Dr. Isaiah, thank you for really helping me out today. You've done most of my presentation, so I can go a little bit faster. A little bit about me. I have been here and worked here for 24 years in Nigeria. I have my kinsman from the Ministry of Agriculture in Yobe State. I come from Jajeri. If I was Nigerian, that's my local government. So for me, this isn't a short-term job that I've come in to do. I am very much just deeply proud to have worked here for all these years. So I'll get started to speak a little bit about the activity. So the Rural Resilience activity is halfway through implementation. Our goal is to facilitate inclusive economic recovery and growth and promote nutrition in vulnerable conflict-affected areas by promoting systemic change in market systems and increasing the resilience capacities of the systems and the individuals who live and work within them. We contribute directly to the USAID and the US government's global food security strategy and the Feed the Future strategy. In just 5 years, we are targeting to reach 590,000 participants, of which 50% must be women. So Dr. Isaiah, I'm with you. Let's join hands together. We're also targeting to reach at least 20% youth. And we're working to transform the rice, cowpea, maize, groundnut, small ruminant, and microenterprise value chains in Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, and Gombe. You would see there's some green parts of the map. We were very lucky. In 2021, we were given additional money through the US government's COVID Relief Fund, and we were able to reach an additional 52,500 people. My boss, the country director of Mercy Corps, has already given you some background about the activity, but I do want to advise that Mercy Corps globally and in Nigeria partners with communities to help them achieve and sustain food and water security, economic opportunities, and good governance in environments that are very much impacted by climate change and conflict. And we know from Mercy Corps' past research that in prolonged crisis, like what we have seen in Northeast Nigeria, where the state has limited resources to provide for and protect its citizens, people rely on markets and social connections for protection, information, and economic resources to cope and adapt from those shocks and stresses. Our evidence from Nigeria is showing that access to finance, savings, and loans is the critical source of economic and social resilience, particularly when it is coupled with other livelihood support. Good. Okay, so before I proceed, I want to give you a little bit about our operating context, although most of you know where we're at. Northeast Nigeria has experienced over a decade of conflict. Some of the root causes are connected to governance and to resource allocation and access to resources. and they've been compounded by climate change. I've seen maps over the last few years of Lake Chad shrinking. Lake Chad, a hub of economic activity for the Northeast, shrinking and shrinking. So that means that our smallholder farmers, and I've seen some of them here, our livestock producers and our microenterprise owners, these are no longer continued stresses, they've become long-term shocks. But it's impacted their productivity, their availability of economic opportunities, their access to nutritious diets. And that means that they're finding it very difficult to sustainably progress out of this perpetual poverty and food insecurity. Our participants over the last decade have experienced loss of economic and productive assets, altered traditional structures. The data shows that a lot of the families in the Northeast are now women and youth-led. Those are altered structures. Information and telecoms gaps and broken supply chains. This has limited their access to high-quality inputs and have plunged them into extreme vulnerability. They've received some support from the state and the federal government, and we thank you for that. But as our government representatives have said, no government can do this alone. They're also themselves battling with resource shortages and coordination issues and the prolonged conflict. Then in 2020, COVID hit. So this was the environment before, and then we had COVID. And earlier this year, the invasion of Ukraine sent ripples through the global food supply chains, including impacting Nigeria. Our Northeast, where we operate, the 4 states where we operate, is the size of Rwanda, Malawi, and half of Tanzania. That's our marketplace. It's incredibly thin, but it's the size of 2.5 countries in East Africa. So the opportunities are there. Our people have continuously faced low productivity, their profitability has been affected, and their economic resilience. So that's our context. In 2021, the Rural Resilience Activity sat together and envisioned what it could look like if development partners, the government, donors, everybody worked. And what we had hoped is that the Northeast achieves transformation in the economy driven by competitive, inclusive, and resilient growth, where growth withstands the test of time, supported by structures and systems with the ability to adapt and evolve, overcome risks and challenges, and create new opportunities to maintain growth. There's some keywords in there: sustainably. Rural resilience is finishing in 2024. We hope that the partnerships and the linkages you create here today will continue to support the people beyond us. What I've put up on the slides is our 16 interventions that we're currently implementing. The box is highlighted in blue are the 4 interventions that we are deploying in business and financial services. And I'm really happy that Dr. Isaiah pointed out that access to credit isn't the only answer. We are also working in ag insurance, in transaction advisory services, and in savings groups. Before I proceed to explain the interventions, I'm going to take just a couple of minutes because Afina did a much better job than the information that I have. Thank you. I think that they don't want me to fall down, so I'm going to move over a little bit. So before we speak about the interventions, I wanted to present some of the constraints based on the evidence that we have gathered. A core principle of market systems development, which is what our activity deploys, that's our approach, is grounded on evidence. Since 2019, the Rural Resilience Activity has conducted a baseline study, a rapid assessment of market actors to understand the impacts of COVID-19, 6 extensive market systems assessments in the Northeast for our value chains, and we have measured market systems resilience for more than 44,000 actors. So anything I put up here for you today is based on a lot of research and extensive field experience. I understand we have different data. Dr. Ada presented data, Dr. Isaiah presented data, I'm going to present some data. That's also something we need to look at. But what we can agree is nearly or 50% of the population of the Northeast is excluded. In Gombe, 76% of the adult population is excluded. We need to look at that, followed by Yobe, my state, 60%. And overall in the region, 62% of women are excluded. And what we have found, some of the core market problems are insufficient access to financial services, an uncompetitive sector, and underinvestment, as well as poor financial infrastructure. And the root causes are the high risk of doing business in the Northeast and therefore high cost, as well as the insufficient supply of pro-poor financial products. We really need to look at this. And we have inadequate incentives for financial players to come and play in the marketplace. We have little knowledge and information reaching the people at the last mile, and we have multiple shapes of conflict. Multiple. So for us, what we envision to do in this sector in just 5 years is an inclusive, resilient, and competitive financial market that leverages on emerging technologies to manage costs and risks involved in serving the poor women, men, and youth in Northeast Nigeria. The program is implementing 4 interventions. We hope to bridge the gap by facilitating access to financial markets for households, smallholder farmers, small ruminant producers, and micro-enterprise owners, and helping them to take advantage of the right products that are affordable for them. And we envision that both formal and informal financial services will be able to get to the Northeast and help us to achieve our goal. Our agri-insurance intervention is focused on building the resilience of households per capita income expenditure. So we want households in the targeted communities where we work to have more money to spend. And we believe insurance and the right type of insurance products are part of that answer. This is because we believe that smallholder farmers are highly vulnerable to climate-related risks, such as droughts and floods, and have very limited access to mitigate those risks with financing tools and the services that can protect them, and therefore protect our nation's food security. This sends our farmers into a cycle of poverty, and any unforeseen circumstances, including any sort of family shock in 12 months, can plunge a family into utter poverty. For us farmers, we believe farmers need insurance, but due to the lack of knowledge, high costs, lack of payouts, and limited risk coverage, they don't attach any relevance to insurance. Working in this space, we envision an insurance sector where service providers are providing insurance to smallholder farmers, while smallholder farmers are actively using it. And I'm really pleased that today we have with us Rose Goslinga, the president of Fula Advisors. She's going to give us our keynote address. Rose has worked tirelessly in Africa to provide innovative insurance products for millions of farmers. So I look forward to speaking with her. Our transaction advisory services is very simple. We provide support to micro-enterprises and state governments to improve their businesses and help them to invest in innovative models that can help them to grow. We don't do this directly. We work with local service providers. And they go out in the field and they go to some of these industrial parks that have been invested in and say, what are the bankable solutions? And finally, and very importantly, we support Savings Group. To date, in the last 6 months, the Rural Resilience Activity has supported more than 81,000 people in the Northeast to become a part of savings groups. Those 81,000 people have saved more than $1.7 million, 200 naira a week. Thank you. They have loaned out people, not banks, not commercial institutions. They have loaned out over $1 million in 6 months in the Northeast. I'm not sure where Bata is. Bata, are you here? Raise your hand. This is one of our women in a savings group. She can tell you her stories if you take some time at one of the breaks. We believe that using a Village and Savings Loans Association methodology and adding livelihood support, some conflict mitigation, and creating safe spaces, that we can empower and create some of the social safety nets that not only are available when people come into vulnerability, but help micro enterprises to grow. Okay, so we've lost the slides. Oh, there we are. Okay, it's really small, but what we have been able to do since we have started working is we have partnered with 14 businesses, both commercial banks and private sector fintechs, to work in the Northeast. Through our $6 million grant facility, we have pushed more than $4 million in investments into the Northeast, having only spent about $2 million of that. More than 61,000 households have joined saving groups. And as we have mentioned, we have supported more than 22,000 families to open up bank accounts. In total, the rural resilience activity has pushed forward loans and savings of $11 million over the last year. Some of our partnership instruments are formal and informal. So we enter into MOUs with partners. That is not a financial obligation, but it enables us to provide direct assistance to locations and enables us to collaborate. We use a subcontracting mechanism to work with the private sector and support some of the de-risking. And we are always using very competitive procurement processes and aligned very well to USAID regulations. We have our Enterprise Investment Fund, which is de-risking investments into the Northeast. And through communications and learning platforms, such as today, we're sharing learning across industry actors. For rural resilience activity, our value add in our partnerships helps us. We work to facilitate capacity. I have some of our partners here. Every time I look at Dr. Edna, I wonder who's teaching who. I think you're teaching us, but Center for Microenterprise Development there. So working at the local level with organizations who are from the region to build the capacity of people, de-risking investment, piloting new technologies, and inclusive business models. Anyone who wants to do business with a rural resilience activity, if you're going to target 10,000 people, 5,000 people must be women, 2,000 people must be youth. That's part of our approach, inclusivity. We help firms in the private sector to analyze new opportunities, and we work in thin and underserved markets while supporting partners to manage their money and their costs judiciously. We ensure that we layer on other work. So if you're going to come into the Northeast and do work there, we're going to take you through some conflict mitigation and help you to understand how your work in the Northeast will not cause additional harm. It is a conflict-affected environment. And we help firms to increase their revenues and growth by working in the Northeast. We have a number of metrics that we use for measuring success. Number one for us is increased revenue, increased savings, increased capital investments, number of individuals trading with our partners, number of people adopting new technologies, and capacity building that we can provide. And finally, I know I've spoken for a long time, I want to leave you with some concluding thoughts. The Feed the Future Nigeria Rural Resilience Activity strives to be a partner that enables firms and participants to succeed. We have never gone into a location, a community, and spoken to a leader and said, here's your work plan. We sit down together on the floor and go through it together. We work the same way with our partners. So co-creation is very important for us. We are constantly interrogating if what we are doing is working. And we use business cases to ensure what is our approach and is this the best approach. So we know where we're heading to, but we don't always know how we're going to get there and with who. We're building our partnerships with mutual trust. And we treat confidentiality seriously. And I say this because a lot of our private sector partners, grain aggregators, these are industry secrets. So we're very careful about what we're able to put out in the public space. And finally, we envision a Northeast Nigeria with the right products available at the right time for all, not just urban centers, all last mile communities who live and work there in the region. Thank you very much.